All right, so let's talk about culture. Now, remember that a culture is a group's shared practices, beliefs, and values. Now, groups of all sizes, from two siblings to the entire world, can develop culture. And one way we distinguish kinds of culture is between material and non material culture. Material culture is the stuff of culture, things that you can touch, from small things like facial tissues to enormous things like buildings. Now, non material culture is things like ideas and beliefs. A couple of related concepts to keep in mind when talking about culture are ethnocentrism and cultural imperialism. Ethnocentrism is the practice of treating your culture as what's normal and evaluating other cultures against it. This practice contains an inherent belief that your culture is superior to everyone else's. Your culture is, as the saying goes, the center of the universe, and everything else revolves around it. Now, cultural imperialism is similar. It involves forcing your culture onto other people. The book talks about European colonialism forcing people in Africa, Asia, and the Americas to adopt European clothing and Christianity. White Americans also did this to Native Americans. We tended to refer to people as natives or savages and claimed that we were civilizing them. When we learn to view cultures on their own terms rather than on our terms, we call that cultural relativism. More generally, when we refer to relativism, it means that everything is on equal ground. No one is above or below, better or worse. Everybody is on flat, level ground. Now, one of the key components of culture is a group's values. Remember that beliefs are things that a person or group thinks is true. Values are beliefs that an individual or group holds dear, considers important. A society's values form its ideal culture. Remember Weber's ideal type? Similar idea. A society's ideals, or standards, in a vacuum. So, when we contrast this with real culture is how a society actually is. As a society, the United States values freedom and justice. Really, though, those ideas get applied unevenly, depending on your race, depending on your gender, depending on your socioeconomic status. Now, culture is also made up of norms, which are the rules for how to behave in a particular society. These can be established and written, the most obvious example of which is our Code of Laws. But student handbooks with university policy and signs that tell you that this door is only for exiting the building are also kinds of formal norms. Cultures also have a lot more informal norms. These are rules that guide more casual behaviors. Like, what do we say to Santa? Thank you, Santa. But there are a lot more unspoken, invisible norms in our lives. Like when we park a car, we close the door after we get out. We flush a toilet after we've used it. These are norms that don't usually get a whole lot of attention. Culture is also made up of symbols, which convey information that helps us to interpret the world. These can be gestures, objects, logos, or even words. Now think of how much information gets conveyed in just one emoji. And consider that there's a lot of disconnect between some of the original Japanese emoji and the ways that we use them in the United States. We often take symbols for granted, but they're not universal. Even stop signs look different in different countries. One kind of symbol that we all use is language. But not only do we not all speak the same language across the globe, there's considerable diversity within single languages. And make no mistake, language and symbols shape how we interpret the world. When you read about the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis in the book, think about its classic example. There are some cultures that have many words for different kinds of snow, so they're able to distinguish between many kinds of snow. Where other people may only have a few words like snow, flurry, winter mix, or slush, so their perceptions are limited to those kinds of frozen water on the ground. Also, one thing to take with you is if you've ever used things like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, there's considerable debate of why Facebook, although it is very popular, a couple of billion users across the world, hasn't taken off everywhere. And some people think that it's because of the thumbs up symbol, right? Thumbs up has not always meant the same thing over time, and it doesn't mean the same thing everywhere. While we might use it in the United States to say that something is okay or gets approval, in other countries, thumbs up means up yours. So it can be taken very, very differently. So that's it for the basics on culture. Next time we'll talk about pop culture and technology.